take 80 here. Welcome to the Action Shooting Show. Today we are going to be talking about three gun. With me is Mark Rebke and Mike Ford, and I'm Ryan Dixon. This show is sponsored by Primer & Co. Primer & Co. sells 2A friendly clothing that's with a subtle message. So that's primerandco.com. So let's just get into this, guys. So first off, just to kind of set the stage here, let's kind of go through how long each of us have been shooting this sport, just to maybe give some credentials for it. And if you've won anything, let people know that. So you want to start, Mark?
Sure. I've been doing this since, I think, 2012 or 2013, somewhere around there. And I have not won anything of importance. There are small enough three guns in the state of Ohio where I have won local matches, but I would consider myself solidly mid-pack when it comes to three gun. But I've been doing this for about 7 or 8 years.
Mike, you want to go next?
Yeah, so let's see. Thinking back to about when I started, it would have been about 5 or 6 years ago. I started, I think I shot maybe one more match before I met Ryan. And it's been a lot of fun. Shot a ton of locals getting started. And then my first major, if you would call it that, was the Pro-Am at Rock Castle. And I've really enjoyed it and worked up from being, maybe the last 10% at a local to being able to win some locals here and there, depending on what I'm running, and had a couple decent top 10% finishes at some bigger matches. But just really shot three gun more for enjoyment than trying to make a podium finish.
All right, and as Mike said, we started about the same time. So the three of us all met through shooting local matches. Me and Mike started about the same time. My first, I guess, kind of major match was they maybe mini major, but it's the 3-man 3-gun, and then the Rock Castle Pro-Am, which we shot for the last 5 or 6 years. They had that. Mike, apparently is either too humble or forgot. Would you place third in the last one in the AM side?
Oh, I can't remember.
Second or third? I mean, you got a trophy from it, so yeah. Mike had a really, really good match. I had not such a good match, but same as these guys, I do pretty well at local matches. I'm usually good for the top 5, and maybe my best accomplishment at a major was a stage win at the last Pro-Am, which was not real great for me, but that stage went pretty well. So none of us are going to tell you how to be the top 3-gun shooter here, but I just kind of want to do that to let you, kind of give some credentials that, nationally we're more mid-pack. We're not top shooting guys, but we're also not the lower third. So, and we've been doing this a long time, so we definitely, can have the credentials to tell you how to get into the sport. On top of that, I've been match directing now for 2 years and helping run it a lot longer. So all of us have done a lot on the local level to help get new shooters in. So between ROing and just walking new shooters through their first match, and so we've seen a lot of what new shooters do right and a lot of what new shooters do wrong. So we're going to kind of lean on that experience here. So before we get into the first topic, any of you guys have anything else to say, Mark?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if Mike took the class, but both Ryan and I took the 3-Gun Nation RO class, and so we're both certified. I don't know, Mike must have took it too. So we're certified 3-Gun Nation ROs, which probably doesn't mean anything nowadays, but at the time, we took the class. We've experienced as range officers on top of our shooting experience, so something to add.
Yeah, for sure. And I think all of us have RO'd major matches. I don't know if Mike's done major 3-gun matches, but run and guns. So a lot of this translates over. So first, to kind of get started off, what is three gun? Or it's also called multi-gun. Kind of take your pick. Kind of depends on where you're from, I think. But maybe the easiest way, you're using three guns, as the name would imply: rifle, pistol, and shotgun. You may use all three of them on a stage. You may use two of them on a stage. You may use one of them on a stage. Nothing's written in stone. Three gun is very diverse in how it's shot, and no stages are the same. No areas are the same. Every match director is going to throw something different. But with these three guns, you will be navigating a course of fire, and you will be trying to neutralize all the targets. Typically, at least in all the three gun I know, it's some form of time plus. So you get, if you neutralize every target, however long it took you, that's your time. If you had any penalties because you missed a target, you passed one up, you didn't get as many hits on it, that adds penalty time, and that time is then added on to your overall time. So let's say you ran it in 25 seconds and you had 5 seconds in penalty. Your time is 30 seconds. Just like golf, the lowest score wins. Not to get too deep in the weeds with scoring, but some will then make that a percentage. So the top guy got 20 seconds, so he gets 100%. You get a percentage of what he got, and that's how it's scored. But you're going through a stage trying to knock down targets, put holes in paper, and it tends to be more dynamic than some other sports. You may be going over top of things. It's not quite run and gun where you get like obstacles usually, but you may be crawling through a tube. You may be shooting down through a low port, a high port. We've climbed on top of A-frames. Shooting prone, shooting on wobble bridges. I mean, it's going to be more dynamic than something like Steel Challenge where you stand in one place. And I'd say in general, it's even more dynamic than like a USPSA where you are running around and you're doing a lot of similar things, but running gun or three gun, seems to get a little bit more dynamic than that. And if you guys want to add something to that.
Yeah, I think dynamic is a good way to put it because it is not just standing in one position and shooting. It's supposed to be active. It's supposed to be somewhat physical. We don't have to throw kettlebells around to make it physical, but also it's supposed to be practical in some sense. This is somewhat defensive rifle, defensive pistol, defensive shotgun. So you're going to run a shotgun as quickly as you can, a rifle as quickly as you can, and a pistol as quickly as you can. And they are going to be generally human-shaped targets, so they're practical in that sense. But it is sort of, if you have a gun and need to use it, one of the three primary types of guns, how well can you do that quickly and as accurately as possible? It's not just speed, it's not just accuracy, it's some sort of blend between the two. So dynamic is a good way to describe it, I'd say, and practical also in some sense. But we could get into the whole tactical Timmy description of how practical it actually is. But for the most part, it's if you can use these skills that you develop in three gun in a real world sense, you'll probably be better off than any other situation. So, Mike?
Yeah, and I would say a good place to start is, hey, if you are the tactical Timmy, like I think a lot of us here probably started with our carry pistol, is our pistol maybe an 870 tactical, or some of the guys start with a Mossberg 500 and then an AR-15 that we modeled after Black Hawk Down or something cool and tactical that we saw. That's an okay place to start, but be ready to evolve and learn. The stuff that you start with is probably not what you're going to finish with at the end of your journey, but don't be in a rush to go out and spend money.
Yeah, agree with that. I will add, as far as so when you look at some of the main shooting sports, we have IDPA, USPSA, three gun, kind of being some of the ones that have been around longer. That's maybe a little bit bigger organizations. 3-gun would be the less accuracy intensive, I would say, and I hate to say it that way because there are things where you have to be accurate, but it tends to be more based around speed. So like paper, for the most part, it's 2 on. There may be partial, so you have to be able to aim, but generally if you got a piece of paper, it's 2 anywhere, that neutralizes it. USPSA, you're wanting to get 2A shots, and same with IDPA, and their penalties are even stiffer than that. Having said that, and it gets a little bit bad reputation as being like a hoser sport because they push that speed. If they put a 5-inch pistol plate out at 15, 20 yards, like, you still have to hit that. And they do. You'll get rifle targets that are small, far away. You'll get in paper that's far away. You'll get, partial papers that are 25 yards, just like you would USPSA. So, like, yeah, you're a little less worried about getting 2A zone hits on it, but you still got to get 2 hits without getting a no-shoot, and you're trying to do it fast. So you still have to be accurate, but as far as the sports go, it's a little more of a drag race than maybe, but definitely more than IDPA, and still a little bit more than USPSA. And as Mike said, bring whatever guns you have out, and if you get serious with the sport, it's still a sport, so there are sport-specific gear that will help you do better, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that come out with pretty much their carry home defense guns, and you can perform very well even with that stuff. So
to add on that, to add on both what Mike said and Ryan said, when I started, inset video here, I started with a Remington 870, Glock 19, AR-15 with an EOTech, just basic, whatever anybody has. Again, this is back in 2011, which that was somewhat Gucci, I guess. Not even Gucci, but that was just the hotness, right? And so same idea, that what they're both saying is like, you just start with that, and then you evolve into the game as you need to, but you don't have to. That's not a requirement. And so we'll talk more about what you need to actually start with the game and how to get more advanced into it as we go on with this discussion, but definitely.
So real quick, we'll hit divisions. These are not super important, but it may help frame some of the rest of these conversations. First off, these are really rough descriptions because there are a couple different governing bodies of 3-gun and then a whole lot of outlaw, which we'll get into that later. But so there's not necessarily super cut in stone like this is limited, this is practical, this is open. Those are generally the names you'll hear them called by, but it kind of depends. So limited, as the name kind of suggests, your pistol would be iron-sighted only and typically 15 rounds. The limited 3-gun tends to be a lot simpler equipment rules. If you get into known as like practical or tactical optics is another name you hear it by. Sorry, let me back up because I did the limited pistol. Limited rifle would be 30-round mags in your AR and iron sights or a red dot. No magnification, no magnifier, anything like that. Just a simple, 1x optic. For your shotgun, it is 15, or it is usually 8 rounds, and you are can't load any more than 8 in that, and it would be a tube-fed gun, so no box magazine on your shotgun. If we go on to tac ops or practical, you have a typically pistol that holds what's 144 millimeter magazine, tends to be around 21, 22-ish rounds. No optic on that. Your rifle, you can have one optic, so that's like magnified optic. So you would talk like a usually low power variable optic, 1 to 4, 1 to 6, 1 to 8, 1 to 10, something like that. Some people will use a dot with a magnifier. It's typically not as competitive, but that is an option. And then your shotgun, you can start with 9 in the gun. It can hold as many as you want after the start. And then for open, that kind of gets to be a can of worms. Generally, almost anything goes. Sometimes they'll have magazine limits, like 172 for pistol, and usually there's not any kind of limits on the rifle. And same with shotgun. It's just as many optics, as many dots. Open shooters you'll see with the mag-fed, box mag-fed shotgun with their main dot. They've got an offset dot. They've got bipods and bags on their rifles, and it's kind of the Formula One of just do whatever you can to get as fast as you can. Having said that, for your first match, I would just show up and tell the match director, hey, here's what gear I have, what division. And it doesn't really matter if something you have puts you in open division. Don't worry about it. Don't think, oh, I have a pump shotgun, I'm shooting open division. You're most likely your first match, you're learning the sport. Don't plan on being the top dog out there, because even if you're a phenomenal shooter, you have to learn the game part of it. And it doesn't matter. We've got guys that with a pump shotgun could still win an open division. So if you think that the gear is the problem, it's not. So but that's just kind of roughly, that gives you an idea what you're getting into. But I would bring the guns that are most comfortable for you, that you shoot the best or you're most comfortable. Anything you guys want to add to that?
Yeah. I want to clarify a couple things. So you said 15 rounds for limited. Generally, what they mean is 140 millimeter mags, which usually are +5. Or are you just talking 3-Gun Nation limited?
No, limited is 15 rounds in the mag. 144 millimeters would be practical or tac ops. That's like a 21 round mag.
Okay, yeah. So 21, 22 round mag. Usually they call it +5 base plate. I don't know.
That's not limited though.
Right. So it's practical optics, I guess. Or
yeah.
This is the whole thing about read the rule book. This has been my rant, my favorite rant of this show is read the rule book. I'm an RO. I'm pissed off that you're. Yeah. So read the rule book. They'll say, does it mean 15 rounds or does it mean 140 millimeters? Because if you're a USPSA shooter, 140 millimeters is what limited means. And so a little difference there that you should be aware of. And then when Ryan said 170 in the open guns, he means 170 millimeters from top of the mag to the bottom, which is typically 28 to 30 round mags, not the big sticks that you can get in Glocks where they're 33 mags. Usually they limit you up to 28, 29, 30, something like that. So I just wanted to clarify that. But again, see what we mean is it's a debatable area where, well, we shoot out in Colorado, we always shoot. Limited means limited, That's something.
And I don't think you should say debatable. It's just that each rule set is defining what each division is a little bit differently. So just make sure that if limited is a certain length or if it's 15 rounds in the magazine.
Well, I'm going to debate. Don't tell me it's not debatable. I'm going to debate you. I'll get on 3-Gun Talk and I'll tell you what I really think about those mag limits.
All right, Mike, did you have something to add?
Yeah, so I was just going to say that it's really easy to get caught up in the arms race in the beginning. And really all that is the race to the bottom. 3-Gun is about being proficient. And so if you're proficient with your pump shotgun and you can run it well, or your Glock 19 or whatever you have, just show up and run that. Don't be afraid to run it for a while. I see a lot of guys end up dumping them a lot of money really quick, and I was that guy. I shot probably 2 matches and went out and dumped a whole bunch of money, and it was completely unnecessary. And I've actually kind of gone back to my roots, so to speak. and I've shot 3-gun with a Glock 22 and a Glock 17 and some non-race gun, and I found that in some ways some of my best improvement was when I went back to the basics. So show up with what you have and learn to be proficient with what you have. You can't take advantage of all the Formula One things if you're not proficient with weapons manipulation. And that's the beauty of 3-gun. It's manipulation of your rifle, getting it in and out of good shooting positions, being able to manipulate your pistol in and out of your holster cleanly and safely, getting those magazine reloads, handling your shotgun proficiently, and getting those malfunction clearance in. If you shoot a shotgun, whether it's box fed or tube fed long enough, you're going to have issues. So get those snap caps or training dummy loads for your shotgun and learn that proficiency. You know, you can pick up the accuracy as time goes and shoot some other sports like USPSA, but enjoy the lessons in proficiency that 3-gun brings to the table.
Yep. Yeah. But you can't, there's a saying in the sport that you can't buy skill. And I think that's in a lot of sports, but that is definitely the case. Sometimes you can buy like a better trigger for your pistol or a bigger magnified scope, and you may temporarily kind of mask poor skill, but you level out really quick in that, you know, you can't go, whoever's the top guy in the match, if you guys swap guns, he would still beat you. Like, you know, if you're 50% of him, he's still going to beat you no matter what he uses. So we're going to go on to how you got something?
You mentioned like a tactical optics division. Wouldn't a tactical optics division also have optics on their pistol? It just seems like, you know, in the modern sense where everyone's got a red dot on their pistol, wouldn't
Mark, did you want to keep this show short, or for those, since hopefully there's new people watching this, there is debate in the last couple years about allowing slide ride red dots on pistols and tac ops. As of yet, I don't know that any matches or major matches have allowed that, and Mark's giving me crap because I am kind of against that at this point in time. But yeah, that is not the case right now. So if you show up with a dot on your pistol, you're most likely going to be open. So on to how do they work? So if you have never ever shot a match before, any kind of match, first off, you may be better served going to a USPSA match first. It's different, not in a bad way, just they tend to have a different, I think for the ones I've been to, there's a different culture at both of them. And neither of them is good or bad. It's different. But one gun is a little easier to manage. USPSA, being that it's a national organization and really for pistol shooting, that's it. There's IPSC, USPSA, which generally are very, very similar rules, but IPSC's not as big here in the United States. But it's very defined. If you show up to a USPSA match in Ohio, it will be the same as in Minnesota. There will be the same rules as in Texas, as in California. 3-gun, because of the nature and not having like one big governing body, that's not necessarily the case. So that's a good thing about USPSA. So having said that, if there's no USPSA, you're not interested in pistol only, you're showing up to a 3-gun match because that's what you want to shoot, that's fine. What you'll probably expect to find, when you get there, there'll be a place where everyone's signing up. You come in, you pay your money. Usually you got to sign a waiver for the club. They'll either put you on a squad or you can pick to be on a squad. I think as a match director, if you show up and you have no clue what's going on, find the match director, find someone else, say, hey, this is my first match. Tell me what to do. A lot of times there's that squad that we know is good with new shooters, or that guy that's, guy and gal that's really good with new shooters. We'll send you to them and they'll walk you through the match. But regardless, you're going to sign up. You're going to wait around for a little bit. You're going to have a pre-match safety brief. Typically it's 5-10 minutes or something like that, not real long, but they're going to go over some rules, maybe special safety for the match, if the match has sponsors or stuff. That's just all the admin stuff. Once that happens, you're going to break off into what's called a squad. So a match may have one squad, it may have two squads, it may have 5, 6, 7, 8 squads. Just depends on the size of the match. I think usually 8 to 15 people on a squad. It kind of varies depending on how many stages and how many people. But this is your group of people that you will be shooting with all day. There may be 100 people at the match, but you will be with that 15 people, say. So it's worth getting to know them, find out names. It's not a bad idea to let them know that you're new. Typically at a local match, each squad will have a traveling RO. So that's a competitor who is also a range officer. He's going to be running shooters through. Hopefully they've got 2, but he'll be running shooters through. His responsibility is the safety of that squad. And so again, let him know for sure, because he may, most good ROs, when they've got a new shooter, they're going to treat that a little bit different. And there's things that they are not going to assume that that they assume other competitors know. So, and then from there, you're going to shoot the match. Everyone takes their turn shooting. Typically, there's an order. You go on to the next stage, the order changes. In the process of this match, you're going to be shooting targets. So if it's steel, it gets picked up usually, reset, paper gets pasted. There's all kinds of fun things you get to do while you're not shooting. I don't know if one of you guys, I've been talking a while, if you kind of want to pick it up from there.
Yeah, the one thing you should add that you always say before the match that you stole from a better match director than you was that shooting is optional, resetting is mandatory. And so you will be expected to pick up steel, reset targets, paste targets. That is mandatory no matter if you shoot or not. Although if you didn't bring guns and you just want to watch, they're not going to ask that of you. You can stand back and just have a good time. But if you come there expecting to shoot, you're coming there expecting to reset. So plan on that. Some people would be wise to wear gloves if you don't want to have lead dust on your hands touching steel, things like that. But pasters to cover up the holes in targets, those are all provided. Everything's provided. So you want to expect to do a little bit of work to pay off the fact that you're also shooting. There's not, it used to be back, I think maybe back when the heyday of 3-gun, if we're sadly past that, you'd get like Boy Scout groups that would reset stages for you. What part of your match fee in a big match was like everything was reset for you. I think we're past those days, unfortunately, but yeah, expect to work a little bit. And so come out, you'll shoot, and you will also reset and ask questions. Ask questions as many, like so many things are happening so quickly. Say, hey, why did they do that? Why did they move before they shot? There was targets right there. Well, those targets are also available from a different position, and they could shoot them all together. Ask those questions. Feel free. No one will say, boy, you're an idiot. Why did you ask that question? We don't want you to shoot with us. They want you to ask questions. And when you ask questions, you'll get a deeper understanding of what we're trying to do out there on the range. And so I think that would add on to what Ryan said, but some good things to think about there. Mike?
Yeah. So one thought is when you go to a 3-gun match, try to get to the range early enough that you can load your magazines before the match. I see so many new shooters and even people who've shot 3-gun for years and that should know better over there trying to cram magazines. And they end up loading all their mags and not helping reset or doing some of the other things they need to do, like walkthroughs to see how the stages are laid out and pick up on some safety cues. So try to get there early enough that you can load your magazines. If you're fortunate enough that you have enough magazines that you can have them all loaded and not load a single mag during a match, do it. You won't regret it. You can always unload that ammo back into a box at the end of the day, but the time that you're not standing there loading mags can be put into learning and helping, and it'll be well rewarded.
Yeah, so and I should have let me back up a little bit. So when I say you get to a stage, so the squad gets there, and the way that this typically works is first thing is, everyone's kind of mingling around. Once everyone's there, the range officer, the head range officer, will read a stage brief. This stage brief tells you everything you need to know at that stage. Tells you where you start, what gun you start with, if other guns are staged somewhere else. Like let's say, for instance, that you start, the first gun you shoot's pistol, and then you're going to transition to rifle and then shotgun. It will tell you, that your rifle is staged here on this table and your shotgun staged in this barrel and your pistol's in your holster and your hands are in the surrender position, and you're standing on the X's. It tells you everything that's going to go on. Sometimes in 3-gun, you'll get a stage brief that just says, start here with whatever gun you want, and here's the targets you shoot with what, and knock yourself out. There's varying levels of that, but the stage brief gives you all of this. But once the RO has read the stage brief, then it's with most matches you're going to get a 5-minute walkthrough. This means that you get a chance to walk down the stage, look at all the targets, see where you're going to be transitioning, where you're going to be shooting from. For a new shooter, the number one goal should be figuring out where the targets are first and where you're going to shoot them from, but you should be paying attention to where you can safely shoot them from. As a new shooter, it's really easy, and I say new shooter to the sport, it's really easy to get kind of tunnel vision in, and so you're walking, you shoot these targets, you look to your left, oh, there was a target there I need to shoot with rifle. You swing back around, your muzzle's pointed up range, you've broke the 180. But having even a really rudimentary stage plan can kind of save you of that. As you get better in the sport, your stage planning gets better, and you start thinking about the most efficient way to do something. You will see that, you'll see guys that they're like, well, if I go here, I can hit this, this, and this, and then take one step and hit this, which is a great stage plan. But that one step for them puts them right on the 180, and they know right what they're doing. That one step for you, when you're not 100% sure, now you've taken a step. Oh, I took another step. Oh, yeah, that's what I need to do. Now you've broken the 180. So you'll see a lot of different stage plans. I think early on, just focusing on, okay, I just need to be here, and these are the safe places to shoot stuff is probably your best bet. Yes, one second, Mike. So once that 5-minute walkthrough is done, the first person starts shooting. They call the person up, everyone clears the stage, they start shooting. Once they're done shooting, the stage gets scored. Everyone who's not shooting goes out to reset. There's kind of a unwritten etiquette, I guess, in 3-gun, and that everyone on the squad is resetting except for 3 people. You've got the person that just got done shooting because they're putting their gear away and stuff in mags. You've got the person that's getting ready to shoot, and the RO. Those people are, and if there's a score, everyone else should be resetting. You should be out there. As soon as you're done, you stuff your mags, you do whatever you need to get ready for that next stage. But once that next shooter's done, you got to put that stuff away and be out there resetting. That's one thing I guarantee you, if you show up to your first match and you suck and you don't hit a single target, no one will notice that. No one will say a thing. But if you show up to your first match and you don't pick up a single piece of steel, you don't paste a target, people will notice that and you will not be popular. I can barely tell you how I shot at a match. I could care less how anyone else shoots. New shooters, they'll say, oh, how'd I do? Did you have fun? You're not concentrating on this other stuff. But if someone shows up and they're not resetting, or they kind of drag themselves out, or they're, that's the kind of thing we know. And I don't want to scare you off, but that's an important thing. We've all got to pitch in, and that's something I see a lot of new shooters don't seem to understand. So
and I'll add, resetting is not that hard of work. So don't be intimidated by that. Something that Ryan uh, needs to touch on, and I'll touch on it as well, is when you first get to a stage, a lot of ranges will let you preload the shotgun. And so that means you can load the magazine tube of a tube-fed shotgun, but the chamber has to remain empty. And there will be a safety table or gun rack or something off to the side where that's facilitated. If you've got questions at your first match, ask one of the experienced competitors or the RO to help you. A loaded gun can get you DQ'd. Asking for help to make sure that you load up the shotgun safely and nothing goes in the chamber at the safety table is free and easy. So take advantage of that help. And another little tip is, generally when I have a new shooter and I'm the RO, I'll try to take the time to help them. And if I can't, then I'll pick one of the more experienced people on the squad that I know is a good teacher. You'll have a lot of people that will want to help you, but some people that are trying to help you have only had maybe 1 or 2 matches under their belts themselves. So if you let me know on the squad, hey, this is my first match, then I'll try to generally go out of my way to hook you up with the right person to help you through your first day. And I know a lot of ROs are doing the exact same thing as me. It's a super friendly beginner sport.
Yeah, just 2 things to add to that. One, if you have any experience in the military, it's one of those things where if you're doing something that no one else is doing, you probably shouldn't be doing it. You know, if you've ever been like, well, look at me, I'm way ahead of everybody here, I've figured this out. It's like, well, you've probably figured it out because it's wrong. You know, like you shouldn't be doing things that no one else is doing. But the other thing, going back to what Ryan was saying, is that the reason, circling back to why we say do USPSA or even the malaligned IDPA, is that you need to get experience under the timer. Just having that beep. There's all these memes and jokes about how the timer is just this brain scrambler. And so when somebody says, load 3 guns, shoot all these targets, ready, go, beep, your brain just pops right out of your head. And so the reason you do USPSA or something first is that you get used to this idea of there's going to be a beep and crazy things are going to happen. And then at the end, somebody's going to say unload and show clear. And so when you have to do 3 guns as your first time ever hearing that beep in your ear, it's just bonkers. People lose all sense of reason. They'll run around a pistol like backwards, you know, around a dump bucket, and just, it's crazy talk. And so yeah.
that could never happen to an experienced shooter either.
Bit of an inside joke here, but yeah, so the idea is that it's just a lot to take in. There's the adrenaline dump. This is dynamic shooting. This is practical shooting. So you get that excitement, and we want to avoid safety issues that are related to that. And a big part of that is just experience. You know, just dipping your toe into it. Start with 1 gun, typically pistol, and then work your way up to 3 gun. But again, if you can't get to USPSA, don't feel like you can't do 3 gun. You absolutely can. So good talk there.
All right, I'm going to switch up the order here a little bit just because of how this is going. So, how to prepare. So let's say maybe you've shot USPSA or IDPA, or single gun sport. Maybe you haven't. There are some ways I think that you can prepare so that your first experience will be a little bit better. And a lot of this is based off, I certainly didn't do it. I didn't have any of this knowledge when I first started. I just kind of went out there and did it. I had a little bit of, it wasn't IDPA, it was an indoor leagues, pistol league that was generally like an outlaw IDPA. But so the first thing is, you know, Mark talks about reading the rule book. I think the biggest thing is the safety, the rules as they pertain to safety. 180 is really important, like super critically important. And if you don't know, if I say that phrase and you have no clue what we're talking about, As soon as you get to the match, ask the match director. They will have no problem explaining it. But gun handling, the gun manipulation, I think, is the thing that gets most people in 3-gun when they start. I cannot tell you. So here's what happens. People, when they go out to shoot a gun and they're not in a shooting sport, let's say you go to shoot your shotgun. You load 3 rounds in it. You load 5 rounds in it, whatever. You shoot 3 rounds. Now the gun is empty. Put that down. We load 10 rounds in our pistol. We shoot 10 rounds. Now it's empty. Same thing with AR. So what happens in 3-gun is I go and I've loaded up my shotgun and I've shot it and then I've loaded it more and I've shot it. Now it's got some ammo in it. I dump it. Do that with all 3 guns. So we get to clear this out and they pick up their shotgun and they look at me and I'm like, okay, clear your shotgun out. They have no clue how to get ammo out of their shotgun because they've shot it dry every single time. And it's the same way. Generally not as bad with pistol and rifle, but I still see it with those guns as well. The manipulation, where they get up there and they go pull the trigger and nothing happens with their rifle. Oh, because the safety's still on, or the mag wasn't seated all the way, or there's all these things, and then they get super flustered, and then they're like really rushing around, and because they're that clock's ticking, and I'm not doing anything. So I think the biggest thing you can do is dry fire, and we've done an episode on it here, but just as always, the caveat: if you're doing any dry fire, no ammo in the room. Check your gun 2, 3, 4, 5 times. If you got to use live ammo, just go to the range. Like, go out to a range. You don't have to shoot anything, but practice loading your shotgun. Read your manual if you have to. Here's how I unload it. Pump guns are going to be different than a semi-auto. Make sure you really want to be able to do that without thinking of it. You don't have to go, oh, okay, I push this button in, and then I got to run the charging handle. Or I push this button in, and I run the pump. You want to just be able to grab it and do it. And same with rifle. You don't want to have to think, okay, how do I lock the bolt back on it? Well, okay, here's the magazine release. Oh, well, that's not good enough. No, because there's a round in the chamber. I mean, really, play around with your guns. I hate to say play, but understand inside and out without thinking, here's what I do. If your pistol has a safety, work on drawing and undoing the safety and putting it back on. Same with the rifle. That manipulation stuff, if you come to your first match and you don't have to think about that, your first match will go so much better. Because I mean, every new shooter at some point on my stage almost is looking at me like, well, what do I do now? Because they have no clue how to work their gun. And a lot of these are new shooters. So that is one really, really critical, like really easy thing. I mean, like I said, go out to the range and do it. So I don't know if one of you guys wants to chime in with some other wisdom.
Yeah, I would say when you're doing that dry fire, establish a reference point where your index finger is out of the trigger guard. I see so many new shooters and so many experienced shooters that they're moving around, even if they're putting the gun on safe, which you need to be putting the gun on safe when you're moving between positions, whether it's ports with a rifle, shooting boxes with a pistol. If you're not actively engaging targets, you need to be putting the gun on safe for your safety and the people around you. So you need to have your finger out of the trigger guard when you're moving. When you're unloading and showing clear, you need to have your finger out of the trigger guard. I know a lot of us that started 5 or 6 years ago had the bad levers on our ARs. Really handy for locking the bolt back. But big picture, it was not wise to have a finger down there floating around the trigger. And I know that a lot of experienced people have gone away from it because of some accidents that happened because of those things. So set yourself up for success with the dry fire and manipulation practice that you do, so that thing will be second nature when you're out on the range. We'll definitely help you through unloading your gun if you're a little shaky and excited. But I've watched people at the end of a stage have zero clue how to drop the magazine on their AR. That beeper will really get in your head on the first couple matches. I think all of us in this chat will say that our first couple 3-gun matches, it felt like we were looking through a paper towel tube at the end of a stage. Our tunnel vision was so tight. It was pretty comical in hindsight. But now I realize how fortunate I am that my hunting background that emphasized safety was so strong. So if you don't have a background that emphasizes safety, make sure you're building it from the very beginning. You will not regret it.
Yeah, adding on to what Mike said, go back to our video on just you're a new gun owner. What are the 4 basic safety rules? So we talk about 180. Why does 180 matter? Because we don't point our guns at anything that we don't want to destroy. Finger off the trigger until we're ready to shoot. Just because we're doing something dynamic, it doesn't mean we're John Wick. Your finger is still off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Use your safety. Your safety is not a panacea that can immediately solve all your bad gun handling problems. Be sure of your target, and then all these things come together to make sure that you're safe. And then safe gun handling is part of that. I know people that I've shot AR-15s with, and I can still point to the left side of an AR-15 and say, what does this button do? I don't really know. I mean, you hit it. Do you hit it? Do you hold it down? They're just not familiar with the guns in that way. That stuff is all going to benefit you. It's all going to behoove you when you come to a stage, because like Mike said, you're looking through a paper towel tube when it comes down to the excitement, that adrenaline dump that people are watching. There's 14 people behind me just staring at me, seeing how terrible I am or how great I am. What am I doing? What's going on? And so we want to make sure that those first 4 rules are just welded into your brain, and it makes it safe for everybody else when we talk about, we build from there. Let's start slow and work up. You're not John Wick. You're not going to be the pro on your first time. Let's start small and work up from there. And if you're good, you'll work up fast. You don't have to worry about it. No one will ever hold, well, if you remember your first time, no one ever will hold that against you. So don't look at it like that way. Like, everyone's counting on you to be the best because you've told everybody on Facebook you're the best. So, you'll get over that real quick.
Yeah, so I think what Mike was saying about practicing, that's definitely another good point. Quick. On a course of fire, there's almost always going to be a 180. And if you're looking at the back berm, you're facing 90 degrees to that back berm, that's your 0. You have your muzzle can go 90 degrees to the right, 90 degrees to the left, 90 degrees up, 90 degrees down. So that's your 180. The whole point of that is that everyone during this competition is staying behind you. So if your muzzle doesn't break that plane 90 degrees in any direction from the center, you're never pointing a gun back up range at people. Having explained that, if you have a place you can dry fire, you can just practice holding the gun up and moving with that gun, not breaking the 180. You can practice moving to the left, because when I move to the left, like if I've got a pistol, if I'm moving quickly, maybe my hand breaks off, but my gun is pointed down range still, and I move to the left. Same thing with the right. Okay, now I'm moving. I've got my gun kind of crossed over my body, still facing down range, not pointed at my body. Long guns, they can even be more technical because you're trying to move and you've got this, this shotgun that maybe it's got a longer barrel or rifle, but you can practice moving around, dry firing. Okay, I can shoot these targets. Oh, nope, this is going to be past my 180. I can't do that. Competitors like all 3 of us, we've been in this sport long enough that, and I don't say this that we don't take it serious, but we've got really good spatial awareness now of the 180. There's many times where I've passed up a target, I turn and look at it, and my muzzle goes nowhere near that, and I take 2 steps back, and then I shoot it, and then I move forward. Or other times where I stop, and I'm like, okay, that's right on the 180. And I turn and I shoot, and it's perfect because I knew right where I was at. And there are still times as a competitor where I think, when I'm going into this port or I'm going into this area, as I'm coming out of here, I have to be really conscious of what my rifle's doing because it'll be really easy to point up range. So it's not that we never think about it, but the more you're in it and the more you practice that in dry fire and in matches, it just becomes second nature, and it's not something that you'll have to worry about. But I mean, I've sent new shooters home because they broke the 180 and pointed the gun up range, in their very first match, and I can tell you, like I'm enforcing the safety rules is absolutely about keeping everyone safe, but it is the worst feeling sending a new shooter home on their first stage or their first match because they did something and they didn't mean to and they didn't know it, but the rules are the same for everybody. So I hate it, but I'm gonna, if you point a gun up range or you break one of the other safety rules, that's a disqualification. We're just gonna stop you. We're gonna tell you you're done shooting for the day in most matches, and you're absolutely welcome to come back. And we hope that you stay and help reset and do all that and kind of talk to people and learn. But yeah, that's the worst feeling. So I'd rather tell people now so you can go practice it, and then when you come to my match, it's nothing that you worry about. I know we're about 50 minutes, so if there's anything else you guys want to add about preparing, let's try to do that quick.
Yeah, I've got two things. So, as an RO, if you're a new shooter and you come up and say, I'm a new shooter and I would like help, we understand that you are not coming out here to smoke the stage. We will give you verbal cues and help walk you through the stage. Don't be too proud to ask for that help. If you're not sure about the target order to engage or starting positions or if hey, is that target past the 180? Just ask. We'll give you that information. You don't have to risk it. We'll help talk you through dropping maybe a shotgun and making sure your safety's on before you draw your pistol, things like that. We really want to see you succeed. The other thing is a lot of times when people show up to their first 3-gun match, they come with their friend, a family member, or something else, and you're sharing, maybe it's a shotgun. That's the most common thing that I see shares is shotgun, maybe a rifle. And so when you get to sign-ups, not thinking about it, you'll sign up right after one another. You'll get on the same squad. Well, sometimes it can complicate the logistics of getting shooters set up and ready to go. So if you're sharing a gun at the very beginning, go ahead and talk to your RO and let them know that you and whoever this other person are sharing this particular gun. And that will really help us set up the shooting order where you guys aren't stacked one on top of each other with no chance to preload a shotgun or deal with handing off a rifle in between shooters. So we understand it can be stressful enough at your first match, second match, third match, whatever it is, and we'll try to help you succeed. Just give us the information.
All right. So we're going to try to move on here. I'm trying to keep us in a reasonable time. So I have on here what gear is needed. I don't think we really have time to go into that. What I will do is I've typed up like a whole paper on shooting your first 3-gun match, and it's been shared around online. I will put a link to a copy of that so that you can see that, and it's probably easier to read it. I think the biggest takeaway from that is just show up whatever gear you have. Rifle, pistol, shotgun. If you don't have all that, say you don't have a shotgun, find the match director of the match, talk to him. I would almost put money on it. I've not shot a match where someone wouldn't bring an extra gun for you or a whole extra gear. I mean, we have a local shooter that I let borrow a pistol and rifle for their first like 8 or 10 matches. Just I have extra ones. Mm-hmm. We bring it. Said here's what ammo to buy, and because he had a shotgun and he shot that until he was able to build his own rifle and buy his own pistol. So don't let equipment be the hang up. So
everyone
what's that
can literally equip 2 3-gun shooters.
Yes. Yeah, we all have.
I mean, everything you need.
Yep, and that's like that at every match in the world. There is someone there that has extra gear that has no problem with you shooting it or sharing it, where you guys swap off guns. So if you want to shoot and you want to find one, how do you do that? So 3-gun can be a little bit different. Right now you have USPSA multi-gun, which doesn't do a ton of multi-gun matches, but there are clubs that do multi-gun matches. So you could go to USPSA's website and find those. UML, which is the United Multi-Gun League, a lot more of those matches are out west, but there are some in the East Coast. You can check and find clubs that do matches there. 3-Gun Nation used to be a really big thing. I don't know how active it is anymore. It was sold. Someone bought it. I haven't really heard much. I don't know that you can go there. PracticeScore.com is really your best bet. We can give a link to that, but that's PracticeScore.com. You can put in your address, and it'll tell you the different shooting matches, filter for the different shooting matches in your area. Once you find a match, or you can find a match director or something, and get plugged into that, there are a ton of matches, and most places have enough matches, and they're not always easy to find. But once you find one, and you talk to people, they're like, "Oh yeah, we shoot this match here on the third Sunday of the month, and this match here on the second Saturday," and they'll tell you what all the matches in the area. We got to drive 3 hours, but there's one here in the state over. So that is a good way to find them. I think we could probably do our.
As terrible as it is, Facebook too. Get on Facebook.
Yeah.
Every club has a Facebook page nowadays. Everyone has a group for practical shooting. You can find stuff through there.
If you're on Facebook, 3-Gun Talk is one of the bigger pages that has 3-gun related stuff, and you could get on there and say, "Hey, I live in Boise, Idaho, and I want to shoot 3-gun. Who can connect me?" And you'll get 5 people tagged, and someone will say, "Yeah, here's our next match. Here's my, I'll PM you my cell phone number, and I'll walk you through it." Like it's a really accepting community. So let's just do some, because we're at 57 minutes. Let's kind of do our closing thoughts here. Mike, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, sure. Just the simple thing of going back to enjoying the journey. I've met a lot of great people, and I've learned a lot about myself and about shooting. And a lot of it is just being humble and asking questions and borrowing gear and trying different things out. It's a lot of fun. Don't worry about the sponsors. They come later, if they come at all. So have fun, and we look forward to seeing you out at a match.
Yep. Building on that, just the get humble. Like everyone is, I always spent time at my dad's farm shooting, blah, blah, blah. I know this, that. Come out to the range and get humbled and learn from there, and you'll have a good time. You will meet the best people you can meet. You'll leave your ego at the door until you develop a new ego, I guess. And then you'll have a good time. You'll meet great people. You end up traveling all over the country and enjoying the sport as much as we do, I think. So, yeah, come out and join us.
Yeah, that's all great. I think what you'll find is people in the shooting sport absolutely love the shooting sport and will do whatever they can to help introduce you. And I'll speak for me personally. There's a lot of skills you learn in this sport, and you can learn them elsewhere. So 3-Gun is not the gatekeeper to being a better shooter. USPSA is not. But it does create a very objective way for you to tell. I would not have progressed to where I'm at now without seeing myself shoot compared to other people. Because I can go out and I can run drills and I can do things and I can get quick. And, look on Instagram. Look at all of these guys that'll go out, and you'll see these videos, and they're doing 6 reload 6, and they're doing it in a second and a half. And that's great. Was that their cold run? Was that their 50th run of the day? what was it? It's really easy to look at this or practice and get this idea that like, wow, I got this because I'm in my environment. I'm practicing the drills I always did. I'm practicing I'm doing all this stuff. And then, these people get out a match and they, like Mark said, they get humbled. And it's like, wow, I did not do good at all. My 6 reload 6 in a second and a half is nowhere near that when my gun runs reload. Or even if I planned it, but I was trying to move and I pulled off of this target. So I was kind of thinking about that because maybe I pulled off too early. And you will find people that say, well, that's not real life. That's just a game. It doesn't really matter. My score there doesn't matter. It's not a real gunfight. No one at me. I've not been shot at, but my guess, and this is from hearing other people who have been shot at, if you can't do it with just when it doesn't matter, with just a little beepy timer and a couple dudes watching you or a couple guys and girls watching you, if you can't perform then, the odds of you performing when your life is actually on the line and like, it really counts. Like, I don't know, there's, and again, it's not a substitute for any of that kind of training or anything else. But I will tell you that I took defensive pistol classes before I shot 3-gun, and I'll take defensive pistol classes now. And I'm still learning things, and I'm still always getting better. But I do a lot less thinking about my shooting. And usually, and I'm not the greatest pistol shooter, but I typically am one of the top shooters in the class because I have focused on, okay, I can do all this stuff while I'm moving, while I'm doing this. It's that subconscious competency and just continually raising that. And I don't think I would have got that just going out and running drills with my friends, a couple Saturdays a year or something like that. There's a lot to be said about pressure testing and just getting that experience fun. I mean, there's all the serious stuff, but like when it really comes down to it, just running around with guns, safely running around with guns and like hosing targets and, blasting away with a shotgun at 20 targets and then grabbing your rifle and jumping down and, getting first round hits on a piece of steel at 200 or 300 yards. Like that's a great time. I mean, I can't think of much else that I'd rather do. Honestly, like, yeah, it's a great time. So there's practical things, but just in general, it's a lot of fun. And if you're into that exciting time of, I don't want to say adrenaline junkies, but the people who just like to go, do things. If you've ever been on a go-kart track and like you kind of want to see how fast you can do that turn without spinning out, like this is probably the sport for you. So,
absolutely. I still get the adrenaline dump that I don't get in USPSA. I still get in 3-gun. But I mean, on top of it, everything you said was 100% true. But also, when are you going to eat cold Arby's fries in a clapped out Tacoma watching Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas after a 4-hour drive back from a 3-gun match? Like, that's the other thing. You just can't put a price on, It's just
okay. First it was a Tundra. Second, sorry. I think that was Dairy Queen food that was paid for free, and I can't for the life of me think why that guy bought us food that day.
Some wonderful, wonderful memories.
Screaming down Kentucky roads, watching Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, on the right, like at 9-10 o'clock on the way home from a match. All three of us met at matches and have become great friends, and we have a list of other people that we are absolutely great friends with that we've met at matches, and from all over the country. There's not a time where I'm like, hey, like I'm going somewhere. Who do I know there? Oh yeah, this person. I got 5 friends in every state just about from this sport. So you meet them at a match, you squad once, and you're friends for life. So
yeah, that is definitely a cool thing. Is I've had people driving from the West Coast to the East Coast, and I met them through shooting, and they're like, "Hey, can I crash at your house?" And absolutely, they're some of the best friends I have. There's guys in across the country that I don't go a day or two without talking to, and that is really, really cool. And kind of briefly touching on what Ryan was talking about, cognitive load. And the 3-gun has given me an ability to handle cognitive load and increase that capacity. And I've taken a couple force on force classes, and I've mentioned it before. And unless somebody is doing possible gunfighting as a career or a major part of their career, the competitive shooting guys have a major advantage in the cognitive load that they can handle and their problem solving in these force on force scenarios. So, enjoy the benefits that will go into other areas of your shooting hobbies that come from 3-gun, or whether running gun or USPSA. It's really, really cool how it can enhance other parts of your life, social life, and things like that.
All right, yeah, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you guys all for sticking with us this far. And just a reminder, we are sponsored by Primer & Co. So go check them out if you need like hoodies or T-shirts. There's hats and stickers, and there's a really cool Second Amendment related shooting stuff. There are 3-gun specific gear as well. So if you start getting into sport, that's a good place to go for that. So, yep. Thanks for everyone sticking with us. We'll talk to you later.